Okay. Yes. So the first effect, the first special cut that I'm going to show you guys how to do is a whip cut. Some people call it a whip pan, but it's a cut, so I call it a whip cut. What I'm going to do for each of these cuts is I'm going to break down how it goes with pre-production, production, and post-production. We're going to kind of go through all three phases, how it works. Okay? So, for a whip cut. When you want a whip cut, you're going to use that as a transition. So if I'm here in Celtics, right, I'm interior room 554 day, Morgan sits at a computer, and Morgan is going to say, I wonder what the fish are up to, and then I'm going to use a transition. Where is it? Transition. So then I'm going to say whip cut to. It's going to be also the same place, but it's going to be the fish swim in their tank, right? There we go. Something like that, right? I'm going to use a transition when I want to whip cut from one sequence or from one shot to the next, right? Use it as a transition. Now, when you storyboard it, when you see this in your screenplay and your time to storyboard, right? I'm going to have a shot of Morgan. She's at the computer here, right? Here's my keyboard. She's at the computer. She's going to look and deliver her line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to specify which direction I want the whip cut to happen to, because it has to be the same between both shots. So here, I'm going to go big arrow kind of across the border of the frame. I'm going to say whip out, because the whip is at the end of this shot, right? I'm whipping out. It's like the out point is the whip, okay? So that would be shot one. And shot two would be the shot of the fish in their tank, right? Bubble, bubble, bubble. But with this one, I'm going to be whipping in. And since the whip out arrow points to the right, the whip in arrow needs to point to the right. You need to make sure that your arrows go the same direction, so that way your camera operator goes the same direction. If I whip at the out of this shot to the right, and then I begin this shot with a whip to the left, it's not going to work. Okay? It only works if the whips go the same direction. So we write whip out because we're going to set the out point of this clip as the whip, and we're going to whip into this shot. So right when the director calls action, you whip in and then end on your subject. Here I'm on my subject and leaving them. Here I'm off it and then whipping into it. Right? And it's a little confusing, or do we get it? Right? Start on her, leave, start away from the fish, come to them. Alright? So transition, whip cut. On your storyboards, same direction for the arrow, kind of on the border. Make sure you specify this one's the out and this one's the in. That way when you're out there shooting, because you know you might shoot shot one on day one, you might end up shooting shot two on day 4. You got to remember which direction you went, because if you get the direction wrong, it's going to be wrong. Alright? So when you're out there in production, sometimes what people like to do, which is fine, is on the slate. Right? So shot one, take one. They'll even put an arrow and say like out. That way the editor kind of knows and you kind of remember which direction you need to go. Same thing when I'm on shot two. I might change that to an in on shot two over here. All right? The biggest thing when you're doing a whip cut is for your camera operator. They have to really, really, really use their wrists to get a lot of speed in that whip. If you try to whip pan slowly, it's not going to generate enough blur. Right? Our goal here is to make that whip so blurry that the human eye can't distinguish between the two shots when we edit it. Right? So boom, fast. Don't try to, I mean, you can try to do it with your hips if you're quick enough, but I like to add a little bit of wrist in it too. It's okay if it gets blurry. Blurry is what we want. Alright? So, let's take a look at my raw shots that I have for my whip cut. It should be, here she is.
And action. I wonder what the fish are up to.
Right? And I twist the camera really, really quick.
Fish are up to.
In fact, if we go frame by frame, you can see that it just turns into this blurry goo mess. Right? So what I need to do, go here.
And action.
That's my in point. I push I.
I wonder what the fish are up to.
Now, with the out point, you got to get real specific. I'm going to go frame. I'm going to find that blurriest frame right there. That's got to be my out point. This frame here cannot be my out point. 2 frames later. 2 frames makes a difference, right? Got to be that blurriest frame. Set and out. Drag this down. Right? Now I go to my next shot. And you'll see I'm kind of practicing. I'm setting up where I'm going to be, where I'm going to end, right? I think that's a good one, so let's go back. Now here, I need to make sure that my in is the blurriest moment, right? I'm whipping in, so I set my in as the blurriest moment, and then end on the fish. There we go. Set my out, drag that down, and now what I have is this.
I wonder what the fish are up to.
Right? And it looks like I've just panned and gotten there, even though these are one's in the front room, one's in the back room, right? Or you could pan from right here to across campus, or across the world, or back in time, right? I wonder what my parents were like when they were kids. And then you're there, right? You could go into a dream, you could go into a flashback, you could go into a thought, you could, right? The bigger the distance you cross, the better it almost works. Mine's a very small distance, just from room to room. But, right, that cut can't be seen because this is just so fast, a 30th of a second, that the human eye can't make out the difference between the blurs. Okay? So that's how whip cuts work. Blurry moments, fast camera move, right? Use your transitions in screenwriting, right? Specify what you're doing in your storyboard. When you're in production, a fast whip, and be very, very cognizant of where you place your ins and outs in your editing. If, like I said, if I add 2 more frames to Morgan here, right, just a couple more frames, this is just not going to work. Right? It doesn't work anymore. And I only added 2 frames. Right? You can see how it works now, and then audiences are paying attention to the editing. We don't want them to pay attention to the editing. We want them to be wrapped up in our story. Okay? All right, that's one. Second effect. Is a wipe cut. Okay? A wipe cut is kind of like what we saw in T-shirt war, where anytime you kind of obscure the field of view of the camera in blackness, usually, and you hide a cut in that blackness. So, I'm going to throw a transition here. I'm going to say cut to black, because that's the end of that sequence. We're going to do a new one. So we're going to do interior, green room day. It's empty. And then we're going to go with another transition. I'm going to say wipe cut 2. And then we're going to go exterior, house 5 day. It's also empty, because I was doing this by myself when I made these tutorial videos. Alright, so with a wipe cut, the way you want to board it. So here's one, right? It's the green room. There's a camera on a tripod, or I don't know what's in the green room. It's green and empty, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my actor or another crew member or even the director themselves walk in front of the lens. So what I do is I draw kind of a big amorphous blob like this, and I write and I say this is going to be a wipe out, because at the end of the shot, when the scene is done, my obscurer, my person, is going to walk across the frame, right? And then in shot 2, when I have, the House 5 quad with the stairs and the planter box, right? That is going to be another amorphous blob that's going to walk through, but that is going to be a wipe in. I'm going to start the shot with that. Right when I say action, walk through, and then the scene can play out. Right? Same way with the whip cuts, right? One ends the scene, this next one begins the scene. Right? And you have to get that order correct. You have to make sure that they both walk, in this case, right to left. right to left. If you have this shot going this way and this shot going that way, it will not work, right? It'll be broken. The thing to keep in mind with production here is to make sure that your walker, your body person, is getting close enough to the lens that they fully block the screen. You can't leave a little bit of the screen unblocked. There's got to be at least one frame where it's just nothing but black. Putting a little bit of zoom in your shot helps, right? Zooming in, that way they don't have to get like right on the camera lens. They don't have to walk like right by it. If you zoom in a little bit, they can block the camera lens just being here with their hip. It works best if they're wearing black or dark color, not a white sweatshirt. That can be a little tough. But like I said, use a little bit of zoom to help you out here. So let's take a look at how this works. All right, so my next shot, here it is here. Here is my green room, it's empty. No, I did my storyboards wrong, I actually went left to right in this, but you get the idea. So in this moment here, you see that my sweatshirt completely obscures the vision of the camera. So that's my out, so I'm going to drop that down. Then I go to my next shot, which is out in the quad. And I'm going to start the scene by walking through. That's going to be my in on that one. Place that down, and now what I have is a cut, a wipe cut, like this. Right? And it looks like we've just kind of magically teleported places. Now notice in the raw footage that I walk completely through. I don't stop, I just keep on walking. Right? Because what happens is a lot of people, they think that they should, like, let's pretend that this is the camera right here. They think they should go like this. Right? And stop. Okay, out. And then like, let's set up the next shot. And then we start here, and then we go in. Right? But then what it feels like is like the timing and the gait of the walk doesn't feel right. And you feel that wipe go like, da-da, da-da. Like it doesn't feel right. So just walk through it, right, to end the first shot. And then come back to the other side and walk through it to begin the second shot. As long as your body is close enough to the lens, or you've got a little bit of zoom that fully blocks the view of the camera, it'll work perfectly. The other thing you can do with this which is pretty cool, I just have to find the shots. Here we are. Is you can stay in the same location. You don't have to change locations when you do this. So here is a shot of the green room here, and boom, there's my out of the first shot. And my second shot, I didn't change anything. I didn't change location, but what I did is I added this picture of the old principal. And that's my in. So now what you have is, let me scale these down because they are high def. Why don't I see scale to frame size? Down here. There we go. Right, so right here, empty room, roll it, walk through, and now it's appeared, right? So you can make things appear or disappear just with a quick walk through of your person, right? Just leave your camera on the tripod. Sometimes I don't even stop rolling, right? I have my camera on my tripod, I roll it, I walk through, just let it keep rolling. Add my new people to the scene, walk through again. So it's a good way to kind of have, you can make people appear or disappear, right? You can kind of go into a memory. It could be a person sitting there sad and alone, and then you walk through, and then you could bring a bunch of people in, and they could be happy, and I could walk through again, and they would change from the sad alone person to this happy group of friends, right? Maybe you put a black and white effect on it to show it's a flashback. So not only can you change locations with wipe cuts, you can add or remove objects from scenes in a wipe cut. Wipe cuts do work best if they're on tripods. Whip cuts obviously got to be handheld, but wipe cuts work best when they're on tripods. So that's two different kinds, a wipe cut location and a wipe cut appears or disappears. So those are two different effects that we've just gotten right there off that one technique, which can be really, really handy. All right, let's see here. What else? Let's erase that stuff and go like this. And if you were doing that, you probably wouldn't use, you would just do the same location, right? You wipe cut, And then in your description, you would see, right, it's empty, and then it'd be same thing, interior green room day. Now the principal is there, right? So after the wipe cut, you've added the principal, or you've removed something, or something to that effect. All right? All right, our next effect that we're going to do are pop cuts. So I'm going to cut to black on this one so it ends. Cut to black. All right, next scene. So now we're going to be interior room 554 day. And what we're going to do is Mr. Olf holds his hand out, and then a toy car magically appears. With pop cuts, it's not really a scene transition. We're going to be adding or removing things from scenes kind of in a magical fashion. So you just need to explain like what you want to happen. If you really want to get specific, you could say, and then a toy car magically appears via pop cut. But again, that's not really the way that a real screenplay would be written. We wouldn't be kind of discussing the particulars of how things happen. But if you wanted to just kind of help yourself out, you can do that. So we're just going to say a toy car appears. For your storyboard for this one, this is only going to be one board because it's really only one shot. We're not going to stop recording like we did with whip cuts or wipe cuts, right? So in this shot, I'm holding my hand out, right? It's kind of a close-up on my hand. And then I'm going to put a little toy car here, like that, and I'm going to give it kind of a little bing, right? Car appears magically, right? I'm just explaining what's happening. Here you can say, this is a place where you definitely want to say via pop cut, right? And pop cuts only work if they're on tripods. They don't work any other way. So this is tripod required, because it only works if the background and everything else in the scene kind of freezes for a second, and the only thing that changes is that toy car, or right, whatever it is you're adding or removing, whether it's a phone or a person, you know, whatever object it is. Like if you remember those State Farm commercials, like a good neighbor State Farm is there, like with a sandwich. And then bing, there's a sandwich. Can I get a hot tub? And then boom, the hot tub would appear, right? So they're basically using pop cuts to do that. All right? So for this one, like I said, gotta have a tripod. Must. All right, let's see here. Man, it's hard to see from here. I think it's... here it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do, you see the camera's on a tripod, the rest of the world doesn't move. I'm going to set my in, roll it, I'm going to point. And then what I'm trying to do at that moment is I'm trying to freeze and hold my position and be like a statue as best I can as whatever is being added or removed from the scene is being added or removed by my crew, right? Morgan comes in, puts the car in my hand, and then maybe you have some kind of sign or you count down 3, 2, 1, go. And then at that moment everyone can kind of unfreeze. Right, boom. Oh, there's a new car here. Fantastic, right? And if I stack these two shots together and play it, bing, right, a car kind of magically appears, right? You see that I moved a little bit between the two frames. I didn't do a great job of freezing like a statue. The more still you are as that thing is added or removed, the better it will be. And it only works because the background doesn't move. So what I tell people here, camera operators, is be a hands-off camera operator. Put that thing on your tripod, push record, step away from the camera, right? Don't even tempt yourself with having your hand on the handle, because even a millimeter makes a difference when you look at these shots. Jay, what's up? How's it going? All right, so gotta freeze here. Now the other thing that really helps with pop cuts is if you add a little sound effect to go along with it, right? Because it's kind of a magical effect. And anytime you have a visual effect like this, we want to also kind of augment that with a sound effect at the moment that it happens. So I don't know, let's try this one, see how it works. Like, I don't know. Right, that's probably a ding would probably be better or something like that. But visual effects really sell and play better when you add sound effects to them. Having them by themselves is kind of lackluster. On sitcoms, I see them often even put whooshes in for whip cuts. They'll add a sound effect with a whip cut. I don't really see a lot of sound effects with wipe cuts per se, but definitely with pop cuts, right? If you watch those State Farm commercials where things would appear, every single one has a sound effect that plays with it, right? So you can make things appear, and if you do it in the reverse, right, then the car would disappear. As long as you're on a tripod, everything will work out for you. Let's see here. The other kind of pop cut you can do is, all right, let's see here. Okay, so let's end that one. Oh man. Cut to black on that one. Let's do one more. Let's do exterior house 5-day. I like to have my little dashes. Mr. Ulf jumps and floats across the hallway. Right? The other thing you can do with pop cuts is you can make things move in unnatural ways. Much the way the two guys did in T-shirt wars, right? They kind of took the T-shirts off the rack and kind of slid forward, right? You don't have to walk. You can cut out the moments of you walking. With this one, you're probably, again, it's a single shot, so you're going to draw one board. I'm going to have a wide shot of myself in the hallway, right? Here's the pillars, here's the doorway over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump, and then I'm going to go, and then I'm going to land over here like that. I'm going to float up and across the hallway. So, again, tripod is a must. It will not work without a tripod. So, here we are. Set my in. Roll it. Jump. When I reach the apex for this effect, right, what I'm going to do is when I reach the apex of the jump, I'm going to set an out, and I'm going to drag it down to my timeline. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in a rhythm here. Roll it. Go. I'll find that apex of the jump, set my in, grab 2 frames, set an out, drag that tiny little sliver down. And I'm basically just going to get in a rhythm. Here, in, 1, 2, out. Drag that down. Trying to get the apex, trying to get that highest moment of the jump where you kind of float. That moment where you're zero gravity. 1, 2, out. Right? The more tiny slivers you get, the smoother it'll be. The tinier steps you take, right? I'm kind of taking half steps. If I take quarter steps or eighth steps, it would be really, really smooth. If you take giant steps, then it ends up being too chunky. Oops, missed that one. Right, gotta get that apex right there. In, 1, 2, out. The other thing is I'm trying to stay consistent with my chunk size. It'd be 2 frames every time. So that was the last one. So I'll let that one just kind of breathe out, right? Now what I have is this. Right? And I kind of float across the hallway. Right? And you could float all across school like that if you wanted to. It would take so long to edit, but that's the job of an editor. Right? That's one of the great ones that someone did one year was they sat on the ground and pretended to have steering wheel. They were like drifting around poles and stuff. That one was great. I mean, you can do all sorts of great. One, a guy laid on his stomach and the girl would stand on his back like a surfboard, and she surfed him all around the school. One person jumped at the top of the amphitheater and then floated down the steps like that. So they jumped like all the way down the stairs. But it only works if shots on a tripod. Notice no one walked behind me, right? If someone had walked behind me, there might be a person like they would go like boom, 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 right? They would move across in a really weird way. So you kind of have to make sure your shot is pretty clean. Gotta be on a tripod. And like I said, if I took kind of steps like this, right? But if I had gone like this, right? Tiny steps, now it'll really be smooth. So the tinier steps you take, the smoother it gets. The other thing that really helps is if you look down here at the timeline, I am very, right, consistent. I've got 2 frames of each. Ding, 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 ding. Right? It's not one is 4 frames and one is 1 frame and one is 3 frames and one is 5 frames. Then it doesn't feel good, right? And it needs to have audiences believe it. It's got to feel right, right? That's all the science there is to it. It's just got to feel right, right? So I can float across this hallway. Again, here in your storyboard, you would probably, that would be the time to explain, right, that I didn't do my description, so it'd be Mr. Ulf floats via pop cut. Right, that way, when your director sees pop cut, they go, oh, this has got to be on a tripod. Oh, camera person, push record, back away from that thing. Don't even breathe on it, right? Because a millimeter makes a huge difference over the course of the shot. And you can do this, you know, not just with people, you can do this with anything. Like if I look at my raw footage, right? Oh, here you go. You can understand what's going to happen here, right? I just edit out the moments where my hand is in the shot and the trophy is going to slide across the desk by itself. It just takes a little bit of time and patience. And like you can get in that rhythm. Roll it in, boom, boom, out. Drag down. Roll it in, boom, boom, out. And you just kind of get in the flow and it becomes really, really fast and easy to do. All right? So what we have are really 5 different effects that we've learned today. Okay? We have a whip cut. We have a wipe cut where we change locations. We have a wipe cut where things appear or disappear, right? Like I did with the photo of the old principal. We have a pop cut where things appear or disappear, like the car in my hand. And we have a pop cut where we alter the motion of things. Okay? So that's really 5 different effects that we've just learned. And they aren't really even effects. It's really just careful planning, careful shooting, and careful editing, right? Really specific timing on things. And you can use these to you can combine these like we saw the t-shirt where guys combine the pop cut motion with the wipe cut up here, right? They clean themselves up with the fire extinguisher mess in a wipe cut. So you can combine them and do all sorts of crazy things with them. What we're going to do is we're going to do kind of an individual project. You guys are still going to be in groups, but you're going to be graded individually. So what I mean is, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you guys new groups, and you guys are going to get to your computers, you're going to open up Celtics, and one person is going to screenplay their effect. The same way I did, right? It's really, really fast and simple. Nothing too complicated. It's just like, pick which effect you want to do, and you screenplay it out. And that one's mine. Right? Okay, now, you get the laptop. You screenplay yours. While you're screenplaying yours, I'm going to storyboard mine, and we're going to get into a real assembly line. Right? Then you're going to hand that laptop off. He's going to screenplay his. The one that I write, the screenplay that I write, is going to be the storyboard that I draw, is going to be the shot that I direct, is going to be the shot that I edit. And at the end, our timeline is going to look like this. It's going to have an effect, like that, and then it's going to have a credit, and it's going to say, this was written, directed, and edited by Bob, and the camera person was Jim, right? This is Bob's project, right? Bob's the one who hired Jim. Bob's the one who wrote it, who directed it, and chopped it up. And then we get to the next shot, right? Go to the next one. Here's our wipe cut location. This one, boom. This one is written, directed, and edited by Jenny. The camera person was Bob. But this is Jenny's project. She's the one who wrote it, storyboarded it, directed it, and chopped it up. All right? And then you're going to have 5 or 4 effects, depending on how many people in your group, probably 4, on your timeline, right? Here's this one. Boom. This one is written, directed, and edited by Jim. Camera person was Jenny. And then this one here, where I disappear out of my location. Right? That's another version you can do. You can, right? I'm just gone. You see the screensaver changes, though. right? But yeah, you can, so you do that, right? And then the next shot, you start with an empty location, and then you pop cut the guy in, so you can like appear and disappear in different places. And that one was written, directed, and edited by Joey, and the camera person was Jesse, right? So basically, I want everyone's timelines to look like this: a shot with a credit, an effect with a credit, an effect with a credit, an effect with a credit. And that is what we want this final project to look like. So you're kind of working as a team because I need to share resources, but each person is kind of responsible for theirs. Like if this one is good, if this first one is good over here, then Bob's getting a good grade. If this one over here is bad, then Joey's getting a bad grade, not Bob, right? Whereas in the chase, you guys are kind of all tied together a little bit, right? There's still variances up and down, but you're kind of all working off a baseline. With this one, your grade is your grade. Okay, so some people say, well, we couldn't finish. It's like, well, no, Jimmy didn't finish. Like, you finished because you were on top of things. All right. The other thing, like I said, is use the laptops, log in on Celtics, and have the screenplay just be one big sheet, the same way mine was. Right? So one person writes, and then you do a cut to black, and then hand it off to the next person. So all of your scripts are on one page. That way I only have to print out one thing. With storyboards, you guys can all just work on separate pieces of paper. It's been a while since we logged into Celtics. It might be trying to trick you into paying. Remember to scroll all the way to the bottom, and in the gray it says no thanks, continue with my free account. The other thing is while someone is scripting and someone else is storyboarding, the other person can be getting on the computer, logging into period 2, because what we need to do is going to our video drive. Where are you? There she is. Go into period 2. We're not doing the chase anymore, so we got a new folder, and we're calling it Special Cuts. Right? We could start up Premiere and create the project, file new project. Where does it need to live? Inside Special Cuts. Call it Special Cuts. You could build the titles, right? You could build your credit while you're waiting for the screenplay. So there's always something to be done. There shouldn't be no one sitting around being like, I can't do anything, right? Because there's always something to be done. There's so many bits and pieces to work on, okay? So, our groups are, and our goal is to have all of our screenplays and storyboards done in the next 40 minutes. And have our projects ready to go. That way, on Monday, we're shooting right away come Monday, because we're going to shoot them and edit them in one day on Monday. It's really only 6-7 shots. We should be able to edit that and shoot that in one day on Monday. All right, so groups.